Okay, we are going to be doing one of our last units of the year. We are kind of talking about the wrap up of the Cold War, and so let's just dive in. We're going to cover China in this next video, or a couple videos, China, Iran, and Afghanistan, and the United States and the USSR. Richard Nixon comment. All right, President Nixon visited China in 1972, and the United States began open talks with them. And so the idea was that at this time, instead of having this Cold War idea of, United States, communism versus capitalism, and kind of like we're fighting about this stuff, what we're trying to do is build a relationship. Deng Xiaoping, all right, Deng Xiaoping, became the leader of China in 1980, and he too moves China into a little bit of a different direction. He added market elements to the economy, market elements, in other words, aspects of capitalism. And he eliminated Mao's communes. All right. And this should be deleted. It'll be deleted on yours. In some ways, this impacts how China is today on the world stage, right? Think about this. Think about made in China, right? Chinese factories are largely engaged in market principles today, and they use that to export many, many, many goods throughout the world. Some of his policies, though, at the time, created a gap between rich and poor. And this came to a head in 1989 when 100,000 Chinese students protested in Tiananmen. All right, it's kind of difficult to spell, but Tiananmen, all right, Square, which is at the heart of Beijing. And what did these students want? These students wanted democracy and for Deng to step down. All right. And so in 1989, the Chinese, during this Tiananmen Square incident, the Chinese military killed hundreds of protesters. Deng, let's see, and so obviously these. One second. Well, this is going to be changed. I will update this on your guided notes. So Deng was able to successfully stop the pro-democracy protests. And so what you need to know about this is that obviously he stops these protests, and today China remains the People's PRC, the People's Republic of China, the Communist Party in China, is still in power in China today. So we move to confrontations that are occurring in the Middle East. After World War II, the Shah, which is the leader of Iran, embraced Western governments and favored Western oil companies. And Iran during this time became secular. In other words, became, one second, I don't know. Yes, it became secular. In other words, similar to the U.S. and similar to, what do I have here? The West and the United States. And when we say the West, we mean, actually, let's say Western. How would this? Western Europe. but many Iranians and the United States, but many Iranians did not like this. They thought that the Shah was too secular and that he was not religious enough. And so ayatollahs, right, which are Muslim religious leaders, disagreed with secularism. In particular, one famous ayatollah, where's Ayatollah Khomeini? Ayatollah, right, Khomeini, who was in exile at the time, sent messages to spur an uprising, basically to make the religious people in the country revolt against this Western government. This worked. Khomeini returned from exile and established an Islamic, state. So a country that is built on religion, a country there isn't like a separation of church and state. It is built on religious laws as opposed to secular laws. Hatred of the U.S. and the West, became important. And that is basically the center of their policies, again, to this day. In Afghanistan, the USSR, while the USSR was very influential after World War II, in the 1970s, the Afghans revolted. And Afghanistan is a country that is famous, that is very, very difficult to conquer. It is mountainous. It is very kind of like decentralized. It is hard to occupy that country for any country. So the USSR left the USSR invaded in 1979. Now during this time, the U.S. was giving supplies and weapons to the Afghan rebels. Well, why? Because they were fighting the Soviets. We see that as a theme. Anytime that somebody is fighting the Soviets, we, as the United States during this time, are going to basically fund them as much as we can. So the USSR found it impossible to control. Found it impossible to control the territory. They fought there for 10 years, but left in 1989. And I think we have a good breaking point right there.